What is your name and what do you do?
Greetings. My name is Marco H. Rodriguez, and I was in fact ultimately casted as the voice of Fruity in the series MTV Downtown, which we all know is an animated series. And whether you thought I stunk or I was okay, it was a blessing to be part of the process.
How did you land the iconic role of Fruity on Downtown?
I was incredibly lucky, and that is the honest truth. I was in a band at the time, and one of my two guitarists found out about an open audition by way of his mother. And for this given audition, they were looking for city kids of all types. City kids creating, city kids partying, primarily young adults, late teens, early 20s, but they did interview, as we know, a great deal of people at Washington Square Park, outside of given establishments, from what I remember, on the block. And what they were trying to do was get a true sense of the experience of the five boroughs and what it is to be young and the runaround. And I went in with my three other musicians. They basically paired us up, split us up, tried different things. This person would play this character. This person would play. I remember even reading from Matt, we read all around. And ultimately, after doing that, I ended up staying behind after they told my other musicians, after thanking them and telling them that they could part. They told me to stick around, and that's when the process of, being casted for the character truly began. The person whom Fruity is actually traded after is that of one of the Budweiser "What's up, guys?" If you remember in the 90s, there were a series of commercials on, for Budweiser, where I think there were four guys, and they would just basically respond to everything, whether it was the pizza guy buzzing in, a friend calling, as "What's up?" One of those gentlemen, and I do not recall his name because I'm a horse's rear. I apologize to all. It looks really bad, and I'm sorry, Chris, and to your friend as well, because he was chill. He congratulated me when I got the part. He is, in fact, one of the gentlemen in those commercials on the couch, and he is the one with the big blowout frizzy hair. He has this nice blowout. It's kind of stringy, curly naturally, kind of like a Jimi Hendrix blowout. So that is the original Fruity. They chose to go with my wet behind the ears self, and it was truly a blessing. And I will never forget being with Chris Prinowski, the dynamic director, whom we know is a powerhouse at Titmouse Productions. He and his wife, co-founders, co-owners, co-producers, everything. Basically, they afforded me the grace. He and Vio Fruity, who was a part of the process too, and the producers, blessed me. And I was lucky. I was lucky. I did not have the talent that the other artists did. They were voiceover artists. Greg Gilmore, Aurora, Jen's character, Hector Fontanez. All of these people were that much more charismatic than I was. Take it easy. And then ultimately, about halfway through the series, that's when I started to let loose. But I was lucky. An open audition led to me walking in with friends. They stuck with me. They introduced me to whom it could have been. I know other people were interviewed for Fruity too. And, so I really lucked out. Not to ramble, but that's how it went down.
Diana Josie 1154 asks, when recording the lines for Fruity, did you use your natural voice or did you put a spin on it to sound more suave?
Hi, Diana. Thank you for asking me that question. And this is the absolute truth. In developing the voice for the character, I knew that he was a wannabe ladies' man. Let's be clear. Whom was vulnerable, good hearted, sometimes annoying, sometimes witty, not as much. In doing that, what I figured I would try doing was take my natural voice at that time. Naturally, I started this when I was 17 and a half. Now I'm going to be 45. And what I wanted to do was kind of bring this Arthur Fonzarelli spin, kind of a Fonzie, kind of trying to be slick. But as we know, Fruity really wasn't slick, at least when he tried to be. in doing that, I thought that would carry over well. And what happened was I went into the studio. I again, kind of choked up. I had enough faith in myself and had done some acting throughout my life. And, I was already a performing musician, which I still am. But I felt like I was Johnny on the spot in the studio. And what I realized was that nervousness with this try hard wannabe Fonzarelli approach and my natural voice, it all manifested into the fruity voice. But I got to tell you, I really didn't even expect to sound the way I did. Naturally, it's me. It sounded like me. But I was trying to be a little more crafty. But that nervousness, that guttural, oh, I got, as I said, it all basically came together, and that was the given voice, all by luck, once again.
What do you like and dislike about your character, Fruity?
I always had a problem with Fruity's bravado. He had faith in himself to go up to women and, say all this and that. I really wasn't that type. And in the instances where I did try to put on that real bravado in life, I failed epically. Atomic bomb explosions in my face, just like Fruity. I didn't per se like his arrogance, but what I did like was that it was all a sham. This was a guy who was very try hard. And more times than not, when he wasn't try hard, that's when you really saw his true self. So I've never been into spending time with arrogant people, condescending people. I'm not saying that he was so extra on that levels, but he had that kind of sassafras attitude, this thinking of, kneel before me. So I didn't like that. However, again, it always blew up in his face, and that's where the real comic relief came. So what I liked most about him were the vulnerabilities, which really mirrored mine. And again, just that kind of say what's on your mind with no tact kind of thing. That's not really my speed.
Why do you think downtown has grown in popularity in recent years?
I feel that it has grown in lieu of the fact that we were all shut down. As we all know, many of us whom lived in given cities in most places around the world had to deal with a good amount of time of being home. And what is interesting about downtown and the boost that we saw during, the real heart of the pandemic and the write-ups that we saw in Rolling Stone magazine, Warhol's interview, one thing seems to come up, and that is that notion of stoop culture, of speaking to friends in the streets, which we didn't have. You sometimes just literally want to sit with someone on a nice day and speak with them. And what downtown did was not only was it a take of that of an encapsulation of a given zeitgeist, if that makes sense, trying to basically get the feel of an era in history. What it did was give people that notion of running around in the streets, going into places, just talking nonsense with friends, talking about something deep with friends, talking about a crazy night, having crazy experiences. Like we saw or hopefully people saw the 13th episode,
Mhm.
which may have gotten us off the air. There were other things too, but basically what it did was give us that feeling of being able to go outside, being able to meander through the streets, being able to just literally, like Ma Bell used to say, reach out and touch someone, speak to someone. So I think that base level feeling of where is the social element in my life came back through the viewing of this show, and there was more of a yearning on the part of the people who may have liked it from before, and also people who gravitated to it now. That's the best way I can put it. Stoop culture.
Do you have any fond memories of working on the show?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was the least talented. I may have stated that earlier, and I mean that literally. I did not, I was not a voice artist. I was a street kid whom loved all the five boroughs, whom knew of all of them and loved running around all of them, having friends and family in each of the five. But I did not have that innate artistic quality that could be exemplified with the way I spoke. I didn't. I was insecure. I was still trying to find myself. And what's interesting is when we started recording, that's when I went to SUNY Purchase. And just a little anecdote that's very interesting. Greg Gilmore, voice of Alex, him and I were both freshmen at SUNY Purchase in '97. We simply brushed elbows. I remember meeting with him. He lived in a suite in one of the dorms where one of my friends lived, who was also a musician. And we knew of each other. We spoke. We had some nice little pleasantries, but we weren't close. When I went into the script reading, the very first script reading at the headquarters for MTV on Broadway, I'll never forget. They said, "Oh yeah, by the way, one of your peers is one of your co-stars." And I said, "Whom?" Greg Gil. Greg Gilmore. He walked in. I said, "You can't make this up." I did not have any of the talent that any of these people had. Still, everyone made me feel comfortable. Chris, the producers, Ann Bernstein, excuse me, Andy Bernstein, rest in peace, whom we lost recently, unfortunately, the head writer. She passed, I believe, in 22. Just and unfortunately, we lost, not to stray away, we lost Leora as well as Scott, Chaka and Goat, and they were all blessings. All of these individuals, albeit crew, albeit voice actor, all supported me, all gave me the leeway to grow as a young man, still finding himself. And that all carried over into the, not only personally, as friends and as colleagues, but it was more than apparent in the studio too. The producers would say, no, 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 it's okay. Marco, just let it out. Take a breather, relax, and just let the true magic come. And it was very reassuring. And in lieu of that, that's where the character really came into form with the support that the crew and the producers and the fellow voice artists showed me unconditionally. I really wasn't that good.
I just wanted to add, it's funny that you say that because a lot of the comments that I get online regarding to your characters that they say that they love your voice. They think it's like really, really good, and it's insane that you say this about yourself that like, oh, you didn't think you were talented, and it's
It's really, that's just really how I viewed myself. I did have faith in myself. I just knew that I was going to have to put the work in and I was going to have to open up. And it was also very good. It was formative, as they say, formative in the sense that it helped me find myself. And then as we were recording, I was studying at SUNY Purchase in Westchester, that being State University of New York, Purchase College. And this was in a very unique environment. I was a liberal arts and sciences student surrounded by conservatories, and I had access to those conservatories. So the show, as well as my college education, got me to a point where I could thoroughly express myself. And to be honest with you, when I saw the interview, I mean, I know, of course, whom I am, but I really didn't know who was that person. I'm not going to say who the hell was that guy. By the same token, I meant what I said, but even then, I still could not express myself effectively. So being a part of this really opened me up. And now I do feel I am a voice artist. But me saying this, believe me, I'm not trying to pedestal myself in the vein of humility. I just really didn't have it. And now I'm starting to learn more, basically, how to use given skills to come across vocally on different levels. And that's my honest opinion.
at X Mike K asks, "What's your favorite episode of Downtown?"
Okay, I would have to say definitely Trick or Treat, the canceled one. I think it was a great example of how the show was teetering towards edginess while really, really, really booming with what could have come. If you notice the Halloween Day parade scene,
Yeah.
and naturally, it's a seedy situation. Chaka takes some types of candy, some type of candy that one would deduce maybe was spiked. What they did in that episode was so full throttle, I believe, of what was to come. And all throughout the series, you saw that. There was amazing animation. Chris, his colleagues, people whom have worked on Aeon Flux, people whom, naturally, he had spent time working with Mike Judge, that of Beavis and Butthead, all of the people whom came from the world of Chris Pranowski, and basically all of these dynamic creators whom converged on the scene and basically put this all together was so incredibly talented. And I really feel that episode was really, really at the threshold. And had we been granted a second season, that's when it really would have popped. However, one season seems to have, that was canceled, seems to have really impacted a great deal of people. And I'm just so delighted that young, old, whatever, is gravitating towards it. And we have a new generation of people, albeit again, young, old, whatever, whom are seeing it for the first time. And it's nothing, it has been nothing but organic and special.
At D Money 785 asks, how did you feel after the show ended after only one season?
D Money, thank you for your question. I was very sad. It took a lot of work. It didn't bother me that I was commuting while having a full course load, which was not easy at SUNY Purchase, to the city and back and forth. Other jobs as well. I had an agent at the time. I was very saddened because, again, we were really headed somewhere, and the character development had come into form. And by the end of that season, you knew whom these people were, what their thought process were, and there was so much more that was going to come out of it. I had heard talks of some of the characters being involved intimately. With I'll even say it, the growing pains, the even sexual tension at times between Chaka and Fruity. They said they were going to play with that. There may have even been, talks I remember in passing of them maybe being involved. Imagine that. But I was very saddened by the same token, believe it or not. I knew that it would become a cult classic. And that was because it was in fact unique. And it is hard to encapsulate an amalgam, a to create a time capsule of a given zeitgeist. However, thought, and I still do, that it was an interesting take. I thought it was an interesting take, base level, on what the '90s was. Now, was it exactly like that? No, no. So I thought it was sad, but I did feel it would resonate over the years. And because of this process, I'm meeting people like you, Mr. Brandon, and the money as well. Reach out. But I was sad, but I knew big things would come out of it down the line.
Do you think Downtown should have a second season? If so, at LilyCopt821 asks, would you be interested in voicing Fruity again?
That's a very good question, Miss Lily. I think it would be interesting to see a second season. I would be willing to voice the character. However, I doubt that that will happen. There's a lot of red tape when it comes to dealing with, albeit voice artists, producers, directors, writers, creators, and that of the greater entities whom they have to work with or sometimes controlled by. There is a direct message there too. There is a meta message. I think it would be great if it happened again. I would do it. I would be interested to see how it would be facilitated now. I mean, we're talking about a different era where we are experiencing a great deal of issues and there is not as much collectivism as there was in the '90s. That's how I feel.
That makes
When
sense.
and that's just my honest opinion. You can look at the '90s rave scene, you can look at backpack hip hop, you can look at the art, you could look at a given Saturday at that time in Tompkins Square Park. Every single generation has its own form of artistry, has its own movement, its own energy. And what I'm just trying to say is that I wonder how the lack of what I feel, or better yet, I wonder how what I deem the lack of collectivism now would come across if a second season was created now. If anything, if I had it my way, why not trail the downtown characters to see where they are as adults? dealing with everything going on in the world and then have them backtrack with flashbacks to the 90s. I would love to do it. I doubt it will happen. I'm still open. Hey, reach out to me. You'll probably find out before I do. And hopefully, with everything going on, the characters, if should there be a second season, hopefully AI will not take our place because they can do that too.
Yeah. Are there any aspects of the character Fruity that you would have liked to explore further if the show had been renewed?
His background. Who is Fruity? Who is this given man of color whom appears to be Hispanic? Sometimes he lets the Hispanic go, maybe not. That's up for the viewer to decipher. How did he get the name Fruity? I mean, when I look at Fruity, it's interesting. For some reason, I do see how it works, but I guess maybe some background. We did see Fruity and Matt as teenagers. I love the episode, right? They're scheming on Chaka in the sprinkler. While viewing the sprinkler, they see Chaka, right? The fountain in Washington Square Park, where everyone from, my goodness, Richard Pryor, to George Carlin, to Albert Owens, to Dave Chappelle, a wide array of comedians have performed there. I grew up there. I went to school nearby at PS 41. Um, I was, just you see tidbits of the youth, but just who are the parents of these individuals? Where was Fruity a resident in the Lower East Side? Did he commute from down? Just a little more background. That's all I can say.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see that too. Do you still keep in touch with anyone from the crew who worked on the show?
Yes, I do. I am in touch with Hector Fontanez, the character of Matt, whom is a dear friend to me. I still communicate with Chris Panowski, our blessed dynamic creator of a director. And please, if you haven't so, check out what he and his wife and all his colleagues are doing at Titmouse Productions. As we know, powerhouse for Adult Swim. Hector and I are very close, love him like a brother. And it's interesting. I'm not sure if many people know this. They hear the name Hector Fontanez. He and I are both New Yorican. We are both of Hispanic descent. In this case, we are both of Puerto Rican descent. So, as American born, born in NYC, two men of Puerto Rican descent, we are New Yorican. And it was just very interesting to play within that because, as we know, Matt has this very West Coast kind of flow, and his appearance too, um, which broke grounds too. I love the fact that the cast did not discriminate. It wasn't about that collectivism, hanging out with friends, but not to steer too far away from it. Hector Fontanez, voice of Matt, is a dear friend, highly talented musician, and I keep in touch with him. Leora, whom unfortunately passed, as many of us know, we were talking all the time, and I also was in the process of working with her because I'm currently working on a new series, which will be called JT and Ab, courtesy of Black Letter Studios. I'll talk more about that momentarily. For this given production company, a new animated series that we're working on by the name of JT and Ab was going to feature myself as one of the co-stars, JT, and Leora was to play a character by the name of Samantha. Because of our dear friend's passing, and I hope her family and friends are doing as best as possible because she was a beautiful person and her soul is always with us. We will not be seeing that happen. However, this other stack of dynamite, whom is just as talented and bears a beautiful soul, just like Leora, will now play the character of Anna, whom is going to be traded after Leora Zuberman. So we are trying to make sure that the world does not forget about these friends. And I can't wait. And one thing that may make people happy is that you're going to see, albeit a traded character, be my girlfriend. So it kind of brings together the whole thing with Chaka and Fruity. What's up with the arguments? What is this? I remember one of my cousins saying, why don't they just get it over with? What is this? So that's where things are moving.
What memorabilia do you have from working on the show?
I do have, this is funny. When I was issued all of the series episodes, I was given them, they were handed to me on VHS. So I do have all of the episodes on VHS. I have the majority of scripts. I made some fan friends along the way, and I sacrificed a couple, wrote a little thank you with my signature. Come on. So I have, excuse me, I have given away a few of the scripts. I have a couple stickers. I have the premiere party pass. And I believe I've sent you, because naturally I wanted to have some bearing of proof. So Brandon, as you know, if you want to share that, with the downtown community, feel free just so they know I'm not BSing them.
What advice do you have for those who are pursuing voice acting?
Yes, run with it. It is actually easier to get into voice acting than it was. And what I mean is this: as we have moved forward with technology, the notion of getting your reel out there on given mediums, albeit social media, albeit YouTube, whatever it is that you utilize, the word is that much more to get out. Imagine me during the VHS days. Again, I was not established. I was not a voiceover artist on any level. I found out about an open audition. Do queries online. Look for open auditions all over. There are given websites that you can tap into. And just to let you know, no joke, I typed up what I deem a comprehensive guide of what can help if you want to break in to this given realm of work. So, Mr. Brandon, please provide them my given email. And if you want to search me on your own, go to Marco H. Rodriguez, naturally to view my channel. And you will see on whatever given reel I have or any of my new work, my latest stuff, you will be able to find my email. Reach out to me and I will email you this guide. It's literally called How to Get into the Voiceover Business. So please do queries on your own. You will find jobs. Go to open auditions. I will let you know of a slew of websites too that can help you. But it's that much easier. And now you post something up. Who knows who will see it on YouTube? Who knows who will see it on Instagram? Back then, what did I have to, it was that much harder unless you knew of an audition. Many actors would foray into voiceovers. I remember hearing Michael Douglas in a car commercial and so on. So a lot of voiceover acting came from a lot of sources whom were established, people better yet, whom were established. Run with it. There's information out there. All it takes is a Google query. And I will help you too because it's fun. And don't let anyone put you down. Follow through with what you want to do. Whether I did okay as Fruity, whether you think I was the pits, it was an experience and it was a lifelong dream to become the voice of a cartoon character. Run with it, run with it, run with it, and don't listen to foolish people. Period.
At Game Boy Hotline 3712 asks, "Hey Marco, how do you get the ladies?"
I don't get the ladies. I have a fiance whom I am madly in love with. Again, and thank you for asking me that question, Game Boy Legend. Nah. I was a very shy child. As a teenager, I was the same. As I started growing into my late teens, early 20s, and I started to open up with that of educating myself again, with working with dynamic people, and just doing what it is that I loved in life, I started to mature and gain more confidence. I would say don't be try hard, don't impose, and don't strong arm. Speak, interpret, listen. That's the foundation for true communication. They say be yourself. Be yourself, but if yourself is getting wasted throwing bottles at the wall and then asking for a number, it's not going to happen. So, it's hard to answer that question because in no way have I been this ladies' man, and that's not even what I'm about. So long as my fiance, it's all right with me. That's what matters. But I would say express yourself clearly. Don't be a horse's rear. And don't be a legend in your own mind. Have faith in yourself. Speak clearly. And that's what it takes. But then again, I was never a ladies' man, so I wouldn't know.
What was the biggest takeaway from your work on downtown?
The biggest takeaway was that number one, I think collectivism is key. Again, biggest takeaway from working on downtown. I once again realized even further that collectivism is incredibly important. That's why I love the 90s. That's why I felt that downtown was an entertaining show because what you are seeing is collectivism. You are seeing a multicultural group of individuals, primarily young adults, teenagers whom are reaching young adulthood and older, all together. No one cared that Goat was an older biker type. If you notice, he imparted nothing but holistic messages. In that one episode too, I love the fact that he says, "Who cares how you dress? What's inside?" The whole thing with Alex and Serena. Collectivism is important. Creativity, number two, is so amazing, and I feel also so important. Having outlets. A kid whom is playing music, skateboarding, running around the five boroughs hears about an open audition. He's creative. He doesn't have full faith in himself, but he still wants to be a voice in an animated series. So please continue to create. Number three, again, do not listen to people whom are toxic. Do not listen to people whom have no faith in you. Listen to your inner self, which is your inner drive voice, and just move forward. Again, I've said this again. I was the least talented. I'm not pedestaling myself in the vein of humility. I may have stated that earlier. What I'm saying is the truth. But what I did have was faith in myself without arrogance within myself. So please, again, collectivism, creativity, listening to the right voices, not the toxic voices. And damn it, be yourself. Enjoy life. Look out for your fellow human being. We know things are crazy. And maybe if there was a little more collectivism now, maybe we could get back to that group spirit. I don't want to be definitive in putting down this generation because, again, every generation has its own realm of artistry. But if you can dote upon what I believe said with those three principles, I know I've been wordy, please follow through with them and add to them because your opinion matters. In response to your question, Brandon, I want to thank you first and foremost because you have taken the time to not only befriend me, meet with me on a Saturday, and do this with me. You also have reached out to a wide array of people whom were part of this process early on. What happened to the people whom were initially interviewed at Washington Square Park? Sure, you see videos of them on YouTube, but there were those people. What happened to the random stragglers on the street, the random pedestrians that they stopped? There were young and old people whom were interviewed in the development of these characters, of these stories, and you, sir, are shining a light on them. So I really appreciate your efforts. And I also have to say, rest in peace, and head writer Andy Burstein. Also, Leora Zuberman, whom was the voice of Chaka, rest in peace, lost another friend, as well as Scott Reinecker, another dynamic source. So rest well, Anne, rest well, Leora, rest well, Scott. To all the producers who dealt with my nonsense, to all my fellow colleagues who dealt with my nonsense, you were all patient. And to the fans, thank you, thank you, thank you. If I stunk, so be it. If you thought I was maybe funny sometimes, whatever it is, it is. Thank you so much for pushing this forward. And every day is a new story. Every day is a new story. So who knows what'll even happen next week? Let's see what happens. But while we're here, let's just create and stay positive. Amen. I'm currently working on 4 new projects, courtesy of a fan by the name of Tanner Ogier. How you doing, Tanner? Whom is from Alberta, Canada. He reached out to me, told me he was part of this dynamic production company known as Black Letter Studios. I'm currently facilitating spoken word for a poet. I'm currently working on being bosses, doing varying evil bosses, those given types of voices for an RPG game. I am also working on being the co-star of a new animated series we're working on called JT and Ab. And what else am I missing? I am also working on a new series, which is that of a self-help motivational skeleton, self-help skelly. Look it up, folks. Black Letter Studios. I'll send you all of the information, all of the videos. My name is Marco H. Rodriguez. Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Marco H. Rodriguez for Gold with Brandon. Years ago, I used to be a guy named Fruity, a little older. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. There goes Chaka and Mecca. You know something? I got to talk to them. Hey, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Inflecting bushy foliage in the Brazilian rainforest. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. You got to be careful with those guys. I heard they do all these tests, and I don't know. Of course, it's Fruity, 44 years old. You know, maybe a season 2 will be him having kids. Who knows? Maybe with Chaka. There was talks of that. Testing, testing. That's right. 1, 2, 3. Outtakes.